Hi.
Here we go. Oh,
Hi. That's pretty good. That's pretty good. Okay. We are live. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Monday Night Generational Change. I'm Jen.
I'm Peter, and I have made an adjustment.
You've made a couple of adjustments.
I have. I look like a natural person now, which is actually kind of, even I think I look decent for a change. So that's good. Why is that?
The lighting. You got lighting.
So why is the lighting good, ladies and gentlemen? Secret. This is natural light. So thank you, daylight savings time. Despite what some other people out there might have to say.
We're not interested in the people in the central time zone. We don't even include the people in the central time zone. Who even lives in the central time zone?
Well, I would
say east or west, pick one.
Yes. And for those of you who caught status quo a little while ago, obviously we've got a lot to talk about today. We always have a lot to talk about. But of course, we are living in the United Corporations of America. And you could call it whatever you want. You could call it authoritarianism, you could call it fascism, you could call it totalitarianism for all I care. Everything is about protecting capital. And in late stage capitalism, it gets very, very obvious on a daily basis.
It's extremely dystopian. It's really, really, I mean, we're all but wearing the Handmaid's Tale uniforms, but it's very interesting. Yeah.
A big shout out to our friend Willie Bragg at the Willie Bragg Show.
Hey,
guys,
Willie.
if you're not currently subscribed, please make sure that you do subscribe to the Willie Bragg Show. The positive aspects of both being too sick to lie or go to work is that I get to watch Generational Change in its entirety this evening. I'm very happy.
I don't know what the sick is, but if it's anything that can be helped by soup, go have some soup.
Edward Cam, I don't know why I put your picture up there because that is not appropriate for Facebook. But thank you for liking, subscribing, and sharing.
I didn't even notice.
It took me a second to catch that.
It's funny.
Well, as the channel grows, we will grow with our unique audience because that's what needs to happen.
Yeah.
Where do we begin, Jen? Obviously, there is so much to cover, and of course, we're going to cover it with our good friends.
I think we need to start with Ukraine. I think we need to, and I feel like this is really the first time that we're having an opportunity to talk to very knowledgeable people post the meeting, post the big Trump-Zelensky thing. I mean, I know we talked about it. Like, I know what my opinion is about it, but so I think that's something what were you going to say we should do first?
Well, I mean,
and didn't he just issue some sort of apology-ish, like with his little tail between his legs today? Something like that. I don't know. That's why I think we need to address Ukraine first. Were you going to suggest there's no shortage of shit.
Well, if you would like to address Ukraine first, we can certainly do that. We're still waiting on Karen. Dennis is here, but we could always get started. And so
they're not due until 7:15. She's not late.
No,
he's early, which is nice.
Yes.
But I'm not faulting her. We're not waiting. She's perfectly within the realm of her prerogative.
Look, the thing that I have been very adamant about, and I do think it's something that we want to discuss with them, is that I do think that there is a circumvention going on right now with Trump by the deep state, whatever you want to call it. And the intention is to just never end war. The intention is to never give up on an opportunity to make a lot of money. And while I can appreciate the fact that we do not want to have to continue war in Ukraine, who's to suggest that it isn't just going to end up being a war somewhere else? Isn't that what always happens?
Well, right. But I think that there are some aspects to this that are particularly interesting. And it's really no different than what we've done in so many other countries, except for it's like everything else right now. It's sort of like a mask off moment. So I don't think that it's particularly unique. But I think that we're seeing it from a very different perspective. And I think that, it's interesting when you watch privileged liberals, what their perspective is on someone like Zelensky versus people like us, who I think have a much more nuanced and realistic approach to things other than, Russia bad, so Ukraine must be good. So I don't know. I think it's very interesting. And it pleases me actually that Trump is doing what I kind of wanted done. And I don't think we should feel bad to say it when he's doing something that we think is good. And I don't care what his reasons are. He wants to stop dead bodies. I want to stop dead bodies. That's the point. I don't care what his motives are.
I would imagine that the protesters or activists that were at the protest this afternoon, at Federal Plaza in
Oh,
New York City.
yeah.
They're probably a lot different than the people who were showing up protesting in support of Zelensky and him as also, a perfect leader and doing
Yeah.
everything.
Well, and I'm in both. It's interesting. So I'm in both of those camps, obviously. But we're, now you're talking, it's, now you're taking me over to West Asia, and I just, I'm trying. Yeah. I mean, that's what I'm saying. We got to, have a focus. I don't know. People throw in the chat. What should we focus on? There's so much. I mean,
I don't want to jump too deep.
I don't want to get started. I think later is when we should talk really about the First Amendment stuff that's going on.
Sure.
Like really get into it, because I don't know that, that's not necessarily a foreign thing, but I don't know. There's so many things.
Well, what I would say, and this is just based on some of the information that, Colin and I had exchanged from earlier. I had sent him a number of things, but if you'd like, Colin, if you could grab the tweet that I had put out earlier regarding this guy whose name I can't even pronounce. I think it's Eyal, I think is how you say his name.
Well, let me read it and I'll say it. Because it sounds like you're saying something that's Hebrew.
He's Israeli.
Okay. So, all right. So, yeah.
Yeah, this is somebody whose father is from Israel and is a tenured professor at my alma mater, Rutgers University, grew up in Princeton, and is now a graduate of UPenn and is going to grad school at MIT. And this guy is one of the top pro-Israel accounts, period. Like, this guy and his family know Netanyahu, takes pictures with Trump. They're in this type of thing. And so earlier today, he decided that he was going to spout off about whether or not there is a connection between FARA and the Israel lobby, suggesting that they're not in violation of FARA, even though they really are. And he got absolutely toasted, to say the least.
Okay, so wait, all right. So go to his first thing. What does he say?
Come on, Colin. First tweet, or like first one on the.
Come on, Colin.
There you go. Just keep scrolling. Well, that's one that got some action. But if you scroll up, even some. All right. So you know what? Here's what we're going to do. So Mahmoud Khalil exercised his free speech rights protesting the Gaza genocide at Columbia University. State Department then had ICE detain him, and Trump canceled $400 million in grants. Should that surprise anybody?
No.
As we said, the whole thing about Trump being in power is that it's become an accelerationist type situation. And if you scroll to the top, you'll see the tweet that I put out regarding Ann Coulter. Ann Coulter.
Why? Here's the thing. I've had like a while without having to hear her name. And it's been sort of nice.
Ann Coulter,
that is one of the most
excuse me if I can continue, please. Ann Coulter, in response to Mahmoud Khalil being detained by ICE. There's almost no one I don't want to deport, because she really wants you to know how much she hates immigrants. But unless they've committed a crime, isn't this a violation of the First Amendment? And the answer is yes, it is. But they don't care. That's the point.
But the bigger point is even though that is completely correct that it's a violation, I am saying this to students and young people where I feel somewhat maternal. If you are not a citizen, lay a little low. Just lay a little low. You know what I'm saying? It's like that there are people that are citizens that, are capable and much more, amenable to falling on swords. It scares me, especially for a lot of these kids. And I respect what they're doing. It makes me so nervous, especially. It's like if there is any opportunity for them to declare somebody, whatever term they want to declare them, whether it's enemy combatant or whatever they want to declare them, that will enable them to basically have no rights, no nothing. And it just freaks me out. So I'm just saying, the truth is they could be doing it to citizens too. So but I just think that people that are not citizens are particularly vulnerable. It just concerns me. I'm concerned.
And it's unfortunate that there will be casualties of war, if you will. But this
Yes.
is definitely a situation where it's become so in your face, so out of sight, out of mind, that you can't protect, the empire can't be protected. And I've always maintained, and you've always maintained, that that is the biggest thing that the powers that be hate about Trump. It's not that he's this revolutionary who's going to fix working class problems. It's the fact that he does not protect empire the way that an Obama would, a Bush would, a Clinton would, even a Biden would, if he was even there. But the point is, Trump is somebody who every once in a while is going to say something that is going to completely expose the grift. And then he'll accelerate it to the point at which people are just giving up on the system. And that's a dangerous place to be.
And I want to say this point from Esme says, I'm worried because I'm a citizen, but I wasn't born here. I understand that. I think, and I'm not saying that you should be fearful and walk around in fear, but it's definitely a valid, like, it's, you know, it's something to be thoughtful of. I agree. But, you know, then I have to look at the fact that he starts talking about ridiculous nonsense like removing birthright citizenship, which he cannot do. And so then, you know, from when you're sitting, it wouldn't have even made a difference. You know what I mean? So it's just, it's risky, but I think the most vulnerable are people that do not have citizen status because they can find an excuse to deny them their rights easier. That's all I'm saying. It just my thought.
Well, what better time to have our good friends over at the Eisenhower Media Network? I think it's essential that, you know, we keep in mind that a lot of times people whose opinions are formed based on what they think they know about our foreign policy, especially about the state of Israel, comes from people who have no foreign military experience whatsoever. And the people we like to bring on are ones who actually do. So without further ado, you know them, you love them, our friends Karen Kwiatkowski and Dennis Fritz. Welcome back to Jenny.
As my friend Ray McGovern, former CIA analyst, will say, can I be heard?
Yes, and we're, you know, and it's funny because the best part for me about doing this job is I get to always say, I don't need to know all the things. I just invite the people on that know things. So that way I don't have to lie. I don't have to make anything up. I'll just say, I don't know. We'll get back to you on that. That's the whole beauty of this. I don't need to know everything. But thank you guys so much for coming on. We have a lot to talk about.
Yeah, so we can start. We are going to initially, obviously, we wanted to talk about Ukraine, and we will, but clearly we have to talk about Israel. There is no way we can avoid this. This is way too big of an issue, and it's going to continue to blow up. Now, we could go one of two ways, ladies and gentlemen. We can either go in the direction of the bureaucracy, which is Rick Scott, to show just how obvious of a control that Israel has over our government, or we could start with what is a deeply dangerous moment in our time regarding our free speech rights, where you even have the most hardened ultra right-wing conservatives like Ann Coulter coming out saying you're really out of your mind if you're going to try to deport this student from Columbia University just because you don't agree with what he's saying. Doesn't mean
start with the more ridiculous. Start with Rick Scott. Start with that because that's just ridiculous.
So Karen and Dennis, I don't know if you've seen this or not, but
not yet.
If there's one thing that we have been saying for at least a few years now is that Democrats are much better at protecting empire than Republicans are, because Republicans will always let you see the cards. They're not going to hide. And so Rick Scott, who is one of the biggest Zion Nazis and our esteemed United States Senator from Florida, decided that he was going to make a video the other day, supposedly about daylight savings time.
Right.
But I'll let you decide for yourself what this video is really about.
Senator Rick Scott here. I hear from Americans, it seems like every day, they're sick and tired of changing their clocks back and forth. I mean, we need to lock the clock. Now we have President Trump in the White House. He agrees. Lock the clock. I have a bill. It's called the Sunshine Protection Act, which would lock the clock.
Of all the things that he wants to focus on, because it's very important that we eliminate an extra hour of daylight, because that's important. Could you imagine having this shoved in your face so hard? I'm sorry, Rick, were you talking? I couldn't hear you over that flag over the side of your head.
Yeah. Wow.
No, let him continue discussing daylight savings. It's so critical.
And stop this important. Ever changing twice a year. So let's make sure this is the last time we have to change our clocks.
Well, keep in mind that a guy who's worth $300+ million, this is what he prioritizes.
Okay, but you need to talk about the comments. But anyway, what did Karen, Dennis, what when you're watching this, are you thinking about daylight savings time?
It's funny. I was actually going to click on that. I had just seen it because I'm not a big fan of it. And so I said, oh, what's he got to say about daylight savings time? And I didn't open it. And that is shocking. And there's no place for that, really. Why are they signaling? Most people in America don't care about Israel. Honestly, they don't. They assume that Israel is a friend or an ally. And they don't give it a lot of thought. And of course, as they find out about what they're doing in Gaza, they sympathize with the Gazans. The numbers show where Americans' hearts are. But this Zionist messaging that comes out of Washington, carrying the water, by these guys carrying the water for Israel, it just makes me think, what do they have on Rick Scott? We know what they have on Lindsey Graham. You know what they have on some of the other guys. What do they have on Rick Scott? I'm curious. That's my question.
Well, first
I
of all,
think he's just a Zio-Nazi, no?
yeah. Well,
Dennis?
There's no doubt in my mind there, but let me just first say, hey, Peter and Jen, thanks for having us back on. It's always good to see Karen again. Let me just first say this. We know what his intentions were, because that was the first thing I noticed was the flag. I forgot all about daylight saving times and everything. I just noticed the flag, and so that was intentionally. The next thing I will say, I'm not surprised, because I spent a lot of time on the Hill this past summer, and it was so shocking to see every office I went by, and you saw so many Israeli flags posted outside of members' offices. And that just was so disappointing. And so we know what the intentions are. I will say Rick Scott is truly a Zionist, and he's not, hiding that. Another thing that Karen mentioned, I would like to mention, she alluded to this. I sometimes get so frustrated in thinking that we're not making a difference. But I can tell you from, I saw something the other day from a recent Gallup poll, and you would be surprised to hear, if you didn't know this, that the Israeli support is down by a lot, and it's down, I guess, in 25 years. This is the lowest that support of Israel has been. And so it makes me feel good that we are truly, making a difference. It's just taking some time, but we're getting there. More people, thanks to social media, are supporting and seeing what's happening in Gaza, which we've known and Karen has known, for years from our time in the Pentagon. And so I do feel a lot better. Let me just say this: you got me started now. You talk about Israel, because there's nothing that made me get on fire then. I'm sure y'all may have talked about it some week and a half or two ago, when Trump had the nerve to present this AI video talking about Trump Gaza. And if you're talking about you want to blow up the Middle East, and then you had the nerve to have the most hated man in the Muslim and Arab world being Bibi Netanyahu, laying back on the beach, allegedly in Gaza, what nerve. And I got to tell you, I'll get this out right now, as I've told a couple of audiences in the last couple of weeks. Some of them felt uncomfortable. But I think the only way we're going to resolve this issue, even with my peaceful mind and heart, is that an all-out war in the Middle East to bring Israel to the table. And right now, I don't think Bibi Netanyahu and Israel have a better friend than Trump right now.
Yeah. Let me ask you guys this, because I've never served, but I have obviously a lot of respect for people that do that. But not only the Israeli flag, but there's also this people like Brian Mast that'll wear their IDF uniform into the Capitol. And I'm curious, as people who have served, how is that okay?
Yeah, it's not okay. It's not okay. And, we have some opportunities, or at least in Congress, Thomas Massie comes to mind. He wants to, I think he's proposed legislation, and probably not the first time, to eliminate dual citizenship. And that is not talking about Israel per se, but we know that the most dual citizens we have in our Congress and elsewhere in this country are dual Israeli American passport holders. So he wants to eliminate that. And very much just like you have to freeze, or you're supposed to freeze your investment portfolio, et cetera, when you become a congressperson. you would have to deactivate your secondary passport to another country while you're serving. It's not like you know, it's not your, it's just a job requirement. Anyway,
Exactly.
that has got shot down before, but he still continues to bring it up. And of course, the other big issue, and this is the one that has been going on since the 1960s, is AIPAC needs to be registered under FARA. It is a foreign. What's the second part of FARA? It's anyway.
Federal Foreign Agents Registration Act.
Yes, foreign agent. So AIPAC, biggest lobby. There's others, but AIPAC's probably the one pretty mostly embedded in DC, and it has a huge amount of power. It's a foreign agent, so it needs to be registered as a foreign agent, and that means that the people that deal with them or are approached by them, depending on their job, will have to report. I've been contacted by a foreign agent, and the Foreign Agent Registration Act allows visibility into their activities, and that includes their money. You know, it's funny. I'll quit in a second, but you know, the Doge thing. It's like, well, he's looking in, you know, Musk's looking into this and that. He's finding money and accounts and payments that are going to people that aren't people, or agencies that shouldn't be getting them, whatever. When you follow the money, that's what FARA will allow you to do with AIPAC. It will allow all of us as Americans and the FBI and whoever else is interested to follow the money. And when you see a guy like Rick Scott, okay, 300 million, apparently not enough, because that's at risk if he doesn't, you know, promote Zionism. What business does he have? Except in Florida, obviously he wants some votes from the pro-Zionist sector, but that's not all of Florida. He doesn't need that. We haven't always had governors of Florida that pander to, you know, Israel's government. It's not necessary, but he feels that it is, and we should follow, you know, money. It's money and it's blackmail.
And we have an inexplicable problem going on right now in a special election that Jen and I, on the down low, think is not likely to go in the direction that it should. But of course, it's also not being handled very well in terms of its messaging. But what I can tell you is that this particular individual, his name is Randy Fine. He may be the worst legislator in all of Florida.
He's horrible.
He represents the Space Coast region of Central Florida, which is WASP across the board.
Wow.
And this guy is as big of an Israel suck-off as you can possibly be.
Oh my God.
It has
Okay.
no relevance whatsoever to this congressional district.
He was one of the people that pushed our state in our state legislation, which it passed, that anti-Zionist is anti-Semitic resolution nonsense that they did at the federal level. We had that also at our state level. He's one of those. This is one of those people like pro-war, anti-choice, like
Wow.
just, yeah. This is who we're looking at having.
So this was the tweet that we were engaged with this person earlier today. Jen, how do you say his name? Eyal Yacobi. So that's a big dog. What is the relevance of Eyal Yacobi? Well, he is a early 20s MIT to be student, graduate of UPenn, and he is as loud and vocal of a pro-Israel supporter as you can possibly be. Now, his trajectory is one that was basically gifted to him by his Israeli father, who was a tenured professor at Rutgers and grew up in Princeton, basically grew up in a life of true privilege. And now this is one of the most active pro-Israel accounts on all of social media. This guy is constantly in the presence of Netanyahu as well as Trump.
Who's he referring to when his tweet says, follow the law or get out of our country? Not sure why this is complicated for people to grasp.
So it's going to be a transition into the conversation about Mahmoud Khalil, because he is Eyal. He was a very vocal supporter in the ICE detainment of Mahmoud Khalil. And so, yeah, probably that'd be more appropriate. And so as a result, he's out there making these statements. And of course, I responded on behalf of Jen and I to say, great, it's time for Israel and its lobby to follow the law and register as a foreign agent.
But here's the problem with that, which I was about to say what Esme said. Esme, great minds, hon. What the law is that technically they are following it, and that's part of the problem, but continue.
Well, it's saying, what does that, well, this person says, what does that even mean? Any contributions from Israel are registered with the US government under FARA. That is not true. Why do you freaks always lie? Well, again, look in the mirror. Incorrect. AIPAC is not registered under FARA. And I told him to go back to school. And so as a response, he said,
he's schooling you, because this is why sometimes I get frustrated about not knowing what goes on social media. This is the problem with saying that it's
what is the intention of the Israel lobby? You're
missing the point. The law, that's why FARA, in my opinion, the best way to solve it is to change FARA. So it isn't just about where the money comes from. It includes what they're lobbying on behalf of. Right now, what we have is the way that AIPAC gets away with it is all their money and all their people are American people. It's Americans that are doing it and Americans that are paying for it, for in the best interest of American Jews is their relationship with Israel.
That's what they're
change FARA.
That's what they're claiming, but that's not what they're doing.
Hey, let me just
I understand that, but when
please, Dennis.
No, let me just jump in and say one thing that we mentioned earlier when they talk about American citizens. Remember what we talked about earlier, dual citizens. If you look at, first of all, this dark money, you don't know where it's coming from, but we're talking about dual citizens who are, guess what? Israeli citizens as well that are making a large portion of these donations. So we need to keep that in mind too. That American citizen is used, to say American citizens, but they're really working on behalf of Israel.
But even if they weren't, let's say all of their money is coming from U.S. accounts. And that's how we do it for elections. That's how we do it for everything. If it's coming from U.S. accounts, then that's legitimate. So they're claiming, and what'll end up happening is they'll just change the name of their PAC. And
they've done before.
It'll just be like, right. And they'll make it sound less like connected to Israel, and it'll still be doing what it's doing. But that's why the rule needs to be changed, which is perfect. Goes back to what Esme was asking. That's the problem with FARA.
So what should happen?
Well, in my opinion, it needs to be changed so that it includes organizations lobbying for and in the interest of other nations, even though they are citizens here and the money is coming from here. Like, it's technicalities like that let them slide through. That's the point.
I'm not questioning whether or not they have an army of attorneys that know exactly how to skirt the law.
That's all I'm saying. Just don't say things are don't say things are illegal. See, he posts like he's me, but he's not.
I didn't say that. I never said it was illegal. I did not say that at all.
It was that they weren't following the law.
Well, technically they're not, because if you look under the hood of the car, you would know that the full intention of the Israel lobby is to further the interests of Israel, not the interests of America.
But wait a minute. But
you're talking like a lawyer now. That's the problem.
No, and the other problem is that I would suggest that Israel is us and us is Israel. And so what's in the best interest of Israel is really empire. So that's what's in empire's interest, or what they view as in their interest. So I think those are intertwined. But anyway.
I'm not disagreeing. I just think at the end of the day, we are stuck in a lose-lose situation, because there are going to be casualties. They are not just going to give this up. It's like you guys both pointed out. When you think about what it's like being in the Pentagon or just being on the Hill, the Israel lobby is everywhere. They are in everyone's fucking business. There is nowhere you can go where you don't deal with it. And Jen happens to be from one of the main places in this country where these Israel lobbyists come from. Aventura, Florida is one of the big havens for where these, and again, we talk about it all the time. The overwhelming majority of people, especially in the Jewish community, that support the state of Israel and their genocide against the Palestinian people, they're affluent. These are not regular people. These are not working or middle or even upper middle class people. These are people at the very top of the food chain. Southern Maryland, Northern Virginia, Miami Beach, Brooklyn, New York, places like that. That's where they live. And they, unfortunately, as they say, the Beltway is so out of touch with reality of what's going on in the country. They also, in many ways, are still, unfortunately, driving the narrative. But I think we're seeing some chinks in the armor right now. I don't think they're doing the best job possible of protecting it. And that's why I brought up earlier about Ann Coulter and the statement that she made. Of course, she has to always preface it with how much of a xenophobe she really is and how she wants to deport everybody. But she even alludes to the fact that this doesn't hold water. This is breaking the law. And so if Ann Coulter is saying that it's breaking the law by having to detain a student from Columbia University who just happens to be Palestinian. And the reasoning is because they don't like that they're protesting against the state of Israel at Columbia University.
No, it's because they're Hamas supporters. So like, let me ask you guys, like, this has to be somewhat like horrifying for you to watch. Like you guys are people that like have served and dedicated yourselves to something bigger than yourselves. And this is what that has become, that now our rights are being completely impinged like by a tyrant.
Yeah. I mean, it's true. I mean, we are seeing the continual shrinking of the our constitutionally guaranteed rights. And earlier I was watching, you were talking about birthright citizenship, which is in the 14th Amendment, and you and I would probably disagree on the interpretation of that because I have my own opinion. However, I was listening to what this early on story of what they've done to the Palestinian student there and others by example. I mean, he's an example. They'll follow with other actions if they can get away with it, if we let that happen. But why don't we enforce the First Amendment? Why don't we consider, particularly the First Amendment, but also, the Fourth and the Fifth? And then we can also look at the Sixth, Seventh, and Eighth when it talks about how badly we may or may not treat our detainees or our people that we've accused. And then if we love Israel so much, why don't we extend our understanding to Israel? And when I say we, I mean, why doesn't the Trump administration or any administration extend our most cherished values and liberties, which is what we have that no other country has had? That First Amendment is spectacular and profound. We don't follow it. We have beautiful words on a piece of paper, but we don't follow it. And one thing that is happening, the chinks in the armor, as you've mentioned, people are seeing the hypocrisy. It's in their face, hypocrisy. And we're not, a little children can't stand, your dog knows what hypocrisy is. Children, toddlers, babies who can't speak understand hypocrisy. They understand you said this, but you're doing something else. So we all understand and sense hypocrisy, and that's what we're seeing. So that is why, as Dennis pointed out, they're under the popularity of Israel is under 50%. It's like 48%, as low as it's ever been. But if you look at it demographically, it's a sign of a better future if we can get to that future, which I'm not 100% sure. There's a lot of things that could prevent us all having a future, but if we can get to that future, as the younger generations are coming up, they are acutely sensitive to what they're seeing about Gaza, what they're understanding. They watch, and they're all about memes, which is nothing more than communicating through images. So when you see a Trump pulling out a chair for a Netanyahu who's already seated in the White House, when you see that, I don't need words. People can understand what's happening, and the younger people are very much sensitized to it. The older folks, I guess boomers is not a positive thing, and I'm a boomer, so whatever. But as the boomers go on and retire and stop trying to own everything and influence everything, the other generations coming up are not going to be as hampered by this kind of what is affecting Rick Scott and the other guy you're talking about, the WASP, who has no reason in the world to be a Zionist, and yet he is one.
Yeah.
So
no, go ahead, Karen. I was going to say, if I could just add, get ready for the next year, this year, of more of a messaging campaign by the Israeli lobby, because I can't remember the amount, but it was in the millions that they've already budgeted for, because of that decline we just mentioned earlier, the decline. And as Karen alluded to, I'm always talking to young folks and telling them it's going to be them to make the difference. I did a conference call with a group of young folks about 2 weeks ago because, as I stated earlier, social media is making a difference. And they were seeing everything that was happening in Gaza and not understanding the history of it. And so someone connected me with them based on, I had to put a plug in there, on my book I had written. And they connected me with them. And I discussed the issue with them. And as I tell all young audiences, it's going to be them to make the difference. They're doing the critical thinking and saying, wait a minute, why all this support for Israel? Look, they're doing all the killing. And then when you give them the history of it, they understand more. And so, it's going to take some time. But I got to tell you, this is the most optimistic I've been, in this crusade, because of the fact that to see that decline and to see the continued demonstrations as we saw on behalf of Mahmoud in New York today. You know, there were still demonstrations, and it's not going to stop, and I think it's going to continually to build.
That is a great transition. And yes, there was a protest, a sizable protest, and of course,
Yes.
on very short notice. But give credit where credit is due. If there is a substantial issue at bar, especially in a place like New York City, it is still a very active. It's not even a question of it being progressive. It's just it's a very active city for community protest, especially on issues that really matter. And this issue, I think, is having tremendous crossover. And as we've talked about, Jen, you know, the big issue here above all others is that Trump is an accelerationist. He is not here to protect empire. He's a bull in a china shop. And in many ways, I do believe that that is going to contribute mightily in the downfall of the Israel state. And this is where the protest that happened earlier today, I think, really resonates with a lot of people. And it's being picked up by a lot of people in media as well.
Columbia, shame on you. Columbia, shame on you. You in prison, students too. You in prison, students. Free, free, free Palestine. Free, free Palestine.
We're going to kill all of you. But, you know, as much as it's detestable to hear these Zion Nazis, and it's New York City, so you have to expect it, especially in that part of the city.
Yeah. Hey, let me just.
But Dennis, think about all the people that are marching, that are against this, and then you have the one jackass who's like, no, I'm for this. But that also speaks to the ignorance of the Zionist movement in general. They are totally tone deaf to the realities of how people really feel about all this stuff.
Yeah. Hey, let me just make one remark. You know, with Karen and ourselves, you know, you know, when you invite us on, I look at things from the military, you know, mostly. And let me just say this. When we talk about what's happening at Columbia University, in fact, taking all the money, the funding they took as well. We didn't talk about that, all the funding that the Trump administration has taken. But, you know, the military is designed to protect our freedom of speech. And that's what gets me. You know, those that join, I mean, I got to be honest, I joined the military to try to escape poverty and get into the middle class. And then, you know, they preach, you know, patriotism and all that in the military. But then we're taught it's about the Constitution. It's about our country. And then what, you know, gets me, and when we get on this crusade, when we talk about the lobbyists on behalf of Israel, you know, they're lobbying for us in some ways, not only funding, but possibly giving our lives, you know, on behalf of Israel. And that's what got me into this crusade. That's what got Karen in the crusade. That's when I first heard about Karen, when she saw what the neocons were doing in the Pentagon and taking us to war with Iraq on behalf of Israel. So that's what gets me, is that not only I got in this crusade for the military who lost their lives, but now taking away our rights. That's what the military is about, to make sure we have our freedoms. And now we have an administration that's trying to take away those freedoms. And the biggest mark I want to leave you is just starting now to go after the, you know, those that they consider, you know, that may be students here on visas or may have a green card. At the end, take this to the bank. Their hope is to come after you and me too. Israel. And here it is, and we're not taking from a military perspective. Here it is. I spent 28 years of my life in the military protecting our so-called freedoms, and now you're going to try to take that away from me? That is worth fighting for. Remember this in the military, and Karen knows this, foreign and domestically.
That's right.
Yeah.
To defend.
Right. Yeah, that's absolutely right. And you know, the military people have had trauma in the military. We do think about the Constitution. I'm not saying we read it. I'm not saying we read the whole thing. We understand how everything works, but we are. I mean, I remember people would talk about our oath to the Constitution, you know, over coffee breaks. This is, I mean, it was something we thought about. It's something that makes you feel a part of something. You know, we say I'm part of something bigger. Well, what is that makes us part of something bigger? It's that common belief in what is right. how people should live, how important liberty is. And so it is heartbreaking. And Dennis wrote this book, and we all see this, but it's heartbreaking when you see a country that's supposed to value things that you value, that you love and cherish, and yet we're not doing those things. We are violating every bit of those things for people here in this country. Ultimately, it will be coming after Americans. And, you know, if you're looking at Europe at all, the way that they're highly intolerant in their media of any criticism, and they've actually thrown, you know, people have been detained at airports, arrested, you know, kicked out of the country when they came in to do a media event or a conference, an academic conference. So they're actually doing things that we will be doing soon if we don't stop this, if we don't nip it in the bud now. So we need everybody on all sides, including Ann Coulter, to really make this point. And, you know, there are a number of constitutional lawyers on both sides or all sides of the political spectrum. And none of them defend this. And many of them have platforms. So it remains, I mean, it's pretty recent, but this needs to be pushed back on really hard from all angles.
Well, speaking of pushing back, and I think it's important. And
Wait, Peter, let Dennis say something. I feel like you had something to add to that.
Yeah, and this is real important, but I want to get this out because I know I want to talk about other things in Ukraine. I know time is a matter.
No, we can talk about whatever.
This is important, and I've made a lot of audiences feel uncomfortable when we talk about what we saw in New York City. Now, listen, I want you to think about this now, something I've been following very closely. I always tell folks to follow during presidential campaigns, and then once they pick their cabinet, watch who they pick. This time, Trump feels that he's learned, and he has a bunch of loyalists. Now, I've been telling folks, take a look at this. A loyalist in the Justice Department, loyalists in the FBI, a current purge that is going on in the military. Now, why do I say that? The most important and critical purge that they've done with the military is to fire all the senior lawyers, what we call JAGs, in the military. And
they fired the whole. Is that typical?
No, absolutely not. First of all, when you come in the military, we're considered, and I took a lot of pushback on this on another show I was on, saying, oh, the military has always been political. No,
it's not.
Well, wait a minute. Let me say this now. We as individuals, we have our own political ideology and so forth, but as a whole, the institution should be apolitical. Why do I say that? Because we serve all administration. That's what you want, the institution to be apolitical. Now, why do I say this when you ask, has this been done before? No, you came in and fired the entire JAG office. Now, why are they there? They're there to support the UN subject we call the Uniform Code of Military Justice. Now, Trump had in mind in his first term that, hey, I want to turn the military on our own citizens. Can I do that? Oh, no, you can't do that. But if you purge your military and then you purge your JAG officers, hey, to find a loophole where we could do two things. One, if the unrest in our country, like happened in New York today, if it gets larger, how do we stop that? You know, okay, well, we can bring in the National Guard, but hey, can I use my military now? Well, if Trump have a bunch of loyalists now, and you have a bunch of senior JAG officers in your services now that can find that loophole, we better be careful of a possible self-coup in order to make sure whether it be in support of Israel or in support of Trump himself and some of the things he wants to do, because I got to tell you, this Doge thing is affecting all populations, everybody, you know, not just one set group of people. And let me just say one other thing. You know, when Karen alluded to, I wrote my book, Deadly Betrayal. That's because, in fact, 4,500 military men and women died in that Iraq war in support on behalf of Israel. Now, when you look at this Doge thing, where we're tearing up our gut, which is okay. We need to, you know, I mean, there's a lot of waste in government. Karen and I have seen that ourselves, you know, in the military. But when you start indiscriminately of that war and all the wars that happened since then, we've had a lot of injured and wounded military members, veterans. Now, we've once again betrayed them by indiscriminately going in and firing people, not looking at what they're doing. We're firing people, and that's going to cause uproar in the veteran population, too. So we need to keep that in mind as well.
I think
we were just talking about this today, Peter. Like, that's really what we're talking about today. Like, every one of these moves that Trump is making, in my mind, is just creating either another Luigi Mangione or groups of them. And the problem is some of these groups are going to be very well armed groups. This isn't, these aren't the people in the blue cities that he's starting to piss off.
It's not time for Luigi yet. We're going to finish with Luigi.
No, I just mean in terms of the type of what he's encouraging to happen with every one of these moves. You're pissing off more and more people in this country are armed. So
Jen, not just you own something, Jen, not to frighten you all. Listen, I worked for 14 years with the officials, not the Wounded Warrior Project, the nonprofit organization, but the official sanctioned Wounded Warrior program in the Pentagon. We have a lot of folks out there with PTSD and so forth who was working in those government jobs, and that was a source of relief for them. Think how they feel now, betrayed once again. You just, and listen, you fired them indiscriminately, not looking at what they were doing. Hey, we don't care. Hey, thank you for your service, but you are now fired. Think how they are feared bad. Look, they cut 70,000 positions from the VA, Veterans Administration, that provides support for the wounded. Not only that, they fired them. Listen, we have what you call a call center. Now I'm getting mad and emotional now. We have what you call a call center. You know, you have to go through like 5, recordings if you need this, if you need that, and ready for this. Oh, by the way, if you're thinking about committing suicide, hang up and call this number. By the time I went through all those recordings, I'm about ready to commit suicide. So now why do I say that? If you're cutting 70,000 people, which some of those were the call centers, how do you think, Jen, not to frighten you? Some of those folks are well armed and they're going to get mad because they're going to feel betrayed.
Oh, yeah. No, it doesn't frighten me. And in fact, I've been saying this for years now, that it's going to get infinitely more violent. Our change is not going to come with this electoral system. I think that, of course, freaks people out that we're seeing the end of this. But we have way too many armed people. And we are way too violent of a civilization to not think this is going to go in that direction.
Well, and very often it just hasn't turned itself on the people that do support the Second Amendment.
We've been shitty to veterans forever, as far as I can remember. My whole lifetime, we've been shitty to veterans.
Well, that's why people are looking for the moment. The moment is coming. What that's going to be, I'm not sure if it's going to be a collection of Luigis, which we'll get into shortly. But I want to show you guys the police state that we're under at this point. And the idea that people are serving law enforcement or even in our military, and they would even think about turning on their own citizens for the protection of empire. How long could that possibly last in a country like this? I'm not sure, but I don't think it could last as long as people think.
Stop watch!
All right, guys, I didn't see what exactly happened. I saw the cop go to try to grab him.
What happened? What are we watching?
The cops are detaining somebody and they're doing it.
Okay, I see it now.
We're also living in a time today where people do not regard law enforcement as those that are there to protect and serve. They are protecting and serving, but they're protecting and serving capital.
Oh, yeah.
And the state. And the state. I mean, we want to pick on capitalism. Let me tell you, the capitalism that we see and experience in the United States is state capitalism.
Yes.
It is not freedom. It is not people working together and trading freely, supplying another's need. It's not that. These guys work for the state.
Corporate capitalism. It's corporate capitalism.
That's right. And the one thing that I see, and maybe people don't see that, but when you see a crowd like that of the people protesting, and historically we can see lots of those, and you see the cops, they look to me like the cops are outnumbered. And I mean, obviously I'm being sarcastic. The cops are extremely outnumbered, and the cops don't believe in anything because they are basically handmaidens of the state. Whatever their orders were, they do it. No offense to cops. I'm sure they do believe in something, but when they are doing that job, they are basically stand-ins for a state that is currently at that moment hated by all of the people around them for one reason or another. And, there is a glimmer of hope that in Trump's bull in the china shop approach that he has taken, whether it's to the Constitution or the things that, this the way things are. He wants to change things. He wants to fix things. He has, he loves the country. He has a vision. But in doing that, he will not just break windows that we can look through. Whole doors will fall away. Whole walls will collapse. And we are going to see things and understand things as a people that we didn't understand before. And when I hear about the VA and the, cutting the VA and cutting there's other necessary government services that are being cut. But when I see that, I cannot get out of my head the literal billions and billions and billions of dollars we send to foreign countries, in particular Israel. So why don't, if the VA is important, I know a really quick way to get $3.8 billion a year into the VA budget, just like that, overnight. This is what we can do. And how popular would that be in this country? It would be 85 to 90% popular. 10% of the people say, oh, why do we change something? And the 2.5% or 1% of the people that are AIPAC supporters, Israel, dual loyalty people, they're going to say, no, we can't do that. Well, guess what? The majority in this country would definitely laud that. And there's money there. In fact, end all the wars, and we would have no end to the resources for the people that need to be helped in this country, not just veterans, but all kinds of people. I mean, you talk about the homeless in this country. Yeah, some are veterans, but some of them are just people that have had problems.
There's people working full-time jobs that don't have homes in this country. We are, this is crazy.
We are a wealthy country, but as an empire, other states, particularly Israel, but others, all of our war investment, that money is being sucked out of the heart of this country, and we're not taking care of our problems. And interestingly enough, that was Trump's message as he campaigned. When he says put America first, in his mind, he is saying, I want to keep the resources here. His whole mentality, it's not a consistent ideology of any type. He doesn't understand trade. He says tariffs. But
he's transactional.
But when Trump says tariffs, he's thinking we're going to keep good stuff in America, and we're gonna build ourselves up and keep our wealth so that we can do good things for American people. In his mind, that's what he believes. So as he breaks windows and doors fall down because he leaned up against them, he didn't know what he was doing. There will be opportunities for all of us to become aware of this. And I think Israel's in huge trouble. I've watched a couple of people who study it more closely, but Matt Ho went there, and he's also with the Eisenhower Media Network, and he went there and went to Gaza, I guess, and also Israel. But the economy in Israel collapsing, the global BDS movement. It's not just like BDS movement in America; it's global,
everywhere. Yeah,
there's I don't know how many billions of people there are on the planet, but most of them are participating in a very conscientious way. They're not supporting Israel in any way. They're not buying their goods. They're not condoning their genocide and their wars. So all of this hurts Israel, and they in many ways, America is their last friend. You could say the UK to some extent, but that's not the case, because in the UK they hate Israel. Only the politicians love Israel. The people don't. And in this country, we do have some people that really, evangelical Christians, other people who aren't well informed in the history of our foreign policy and our relations with Israel. They're supportive, but that's all we have. All this is all they have. If this country wakes up and we cut Israel off, as we should, and I don't mean cut them off like brutally, but treat them like any other country. If there's a tidal wave that knocks one of their cities down, let's help them. We do that. We do that for all kinds of countries.
But you know what? The bigger issue is are we really helping Israel, or are we helping Raytheon and Boeing? So the money that we are sending to Israel is actually not really going to Israel. So it's not like we're even helping them. Not that I think we should be helping them, but I mean, that's what's so absurd about it. It's not really
helping the people. It's not helping the people of Israel, but those weapons end up on Israel, and Israel drops them on their enemies and manipulates politics and policies and regional problems all around itself. And they terrify people, and they do brutal things like what they're doing right now in Gaza, which is they've been doing for 550 days, but they just shut the power off. And that's after they refuse to bring in food. So for 7 days during Ramadan, which is, I guess, over now, but they wouldn't let them have food. This is in violation of the treaty that they signed. But they wouldn't do that. And now that that's over with, they go, okay, now we're going to shut the power. Oh, and by the way, we're going to bomb the fuel depots for those people who have generators. It is an extermination policy, and our name is on it, unfortunately. Our name is on it. And if people wake up to this, I'm telling you, there will be justice, and we aren't going to like it because we're a part of this.
Yeah, we're complicit. As I would tell folks, we're complicit. We provided the funding, we provided the weapon systems, and we provided the diplomatic cover at the United Nations. And so we're absolutely complicit. We are the enemy to the world right now. Hey, I know you want to jump, Peter. Let me just say something that Karen said, and it ties in. Maybe you want to jump into Ukraine here in a few moments, if we have time. But let me just say this. Not only the $3.8 billion we're given, plus all this stuff we gave them in the last year in support of them so-called defending themselves against women and children, as we demolish an entire, section of the Middle East. But also, listen, we should be about peace. That's what the Eisenhower Media Network is about, peace and diplomacy. And so I am no fan at all, zero, of Donald Trump. However, I do support his cause in trying to bring peace in the Ukraine war. I got some friends, family, they hate Trump so much, they don't care what he does or say. But I say, listen, I support a drunk man, a drug addict, if they're trying to do the right thing. Now, he may go about it the wrong way, as we did in the Oval Office with the meeting with Zelensky. But at the same time, I support in trying to end this war. You know why? Because the previous administration is the one that caused this. A lot of people don't want to understand that. There was almost a peace treaty, but Boris Johnson, when he was from the UK, went over on our behalf to stop the peace and the treaty and to push for this war. And oh, by the way, we're going to back you. And guess what? That's millions and millions, billions of dollars once again. Now, one of you alluded to, I can't remember, said, hey, the thing about it, too, somebody's getting rich. It's that military-industrial complex we talk about because of the fact those weapons, though we're providing the weapons, we're building them here, and those millionaires and billionaires continue to get in that military-industrial complex, continue to get money. Also, it's political, and I hate this. The so-called Democratic Party was supposed to be years ago the party of peace. Now they've become the party of war. But hold on, but it's based on politics. They hate Trump so bad. Oh, we're going to continue to provide weapons. Oh, Trump, you're so bad. You're running away from Ukraine. No, we're trying to stop people from dying in Ukraine. They're dying by the thousands. Their infrastructure is being destroyed. Let's make peace and save that money and save lives.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I also think that there's a circumvention going on with Trump right now. The whole dog and pony show that they did with Zelensky a little over a week ago, to me, the responses to it, the constant celebrating of Zelensky like he's some type of a hero. And all I'm thinking is, first of all, the ignorance and arrogance of the upper liberal class really knows no bounds. You saw the full display of them. I think it was in New York, where they were doing their own little protest. Not nearly as many as the people showed up today for a real one that mattered. But nevertheless, you've got these people who I still say, I do think the Biden administration, the Biden 4 years are one of the worst terms our nation's ever seen. But if there was one moment that I think really stood out above the rest, it was when the congressional delegation were waving the Ukraine flags on the House floor. I have never seen such a jingoistic display for another country. I haven't even seen that for Israel, but hey, the night's young. It could happen anytime.
It's the same difference whether you wave it on the floor or have it hanging in your office. Like, seriously, you're splitting hairs. And
how little people know about the realities of what this war was all about.
Well, that's the important thing. Trump, he's an older man, very much energy and stuff, but he did not know. Ukraine was not something on his radar during his interim 20 years, and it wasn't really on his radar other than as a cause for his or the initiator for his first impeachment. That was Ukraine connected, but he really did not truly understand the history. He didn't know what he didn't know what Victoria Nuland was doing. He didn't understand what NATO was doing. He didn't understand the longer history of NATO, where it was promised that it would never move eastward. It would never go towards Russia. And he didn't know those things. But then in his interim time frame between his presidencies, because he was betrayed by neocons, made new friends. And some of these new friends watch the kind of shows that you and I would watch. They connect on Telegram. They understand an alternate view, which happens in the case of Ukraine to be far closer to the truth than what we were being fed on all of our mainstream media here in this country. So Trump learned something, and I think if he's 70 at that point, interim years, he was what, late 70s, and he's learning something. That's very positive. We can all do that. And the fact that other people aren't learning it this late in the game, I don't understand that. But it's got to end. It's got to end because Ukraine is losing their country. They've already lost a third of their population. Most of those people, those refugees that left, and many of them are women and children, because the men were sent to be slaughtered and injured, or they ran away where they couldn't be found. But these people aren't coming back. They've done surveys. 75-80% of them are staying or moving to a third country. They are not going back to rebuild what's left of Ukraine. So the people are gone. The environment's been mutilated, as it always is in modern warfare. The kind of weapons we're using there. Both Russia and us are using cluster bombs and we sent all the World War II stuff and the late Vietnam War stuff, all the stuff that's not good. We sent bombs over there that aren't going to explode for, until somebody hits them with their plow, and then they'll blow up a farmer, much as we've seen in other places where we fought wars. But no excuse for any of this.
Let me just add something.
Trump has learned some of this. He wants it to end. That part's good.
Yes.
How it ends, how can you do it? Because Trump is right. Zelensky does not hold political power technically. He is post-election period. He suspended elections under martial law. Under martial law, he is a shaky leader at best. His legal standing is shaky. So the Russians don't want to sign an agreement with Zelensky, because Zelensky will sign anything that he wants, and it means nothing because he won't be the president the next day. Trump, I think, wants to make sure that Zelensky's not the one that signs it. And I think this is what the Russians want as well. And that's part of why if that pre-luncheon fiasco was planned, which I personally don't think it was planned, but if it was, the aim of it is to get rid of Zelensky. He is not somebody that wants peace. And this is what Trump says. He says Zelensky doesn't want peace. But Zelensky says, I want peace, but I want all my country back. And I want you to continue to aid me and build my army and all the money you've been sending to us to run our government. We pay all of the government paychecks in the Ukraine government. We have done that from the beginning. So he wants that money to continue. And that's his definition of peace. And again, there's some money we could put back into the VA. There's some money we could take care of Americans with. And I think a lot of people get it. Not the upper crust elites of this country. Not the dual citizenship holders of this country, but most Americans get this. It's very simple to them. It's not even complicated.
Yeah. Hey, if I could just add on something real quick, what Karen said, and just before she mentioned Victoria Nuland, I was writing her name down because of the fact, sometimes I get so frustrated, because of the fact of, how our media is in supporting wars and all that, and our everyday citizens, if they don't know what they don't know, they don't know. And my job and Karen's job is to help, try as much as we can to educate the public. When Karen mentioned about, we promised we will not move 1 inch further, eastward. I was on a CODEL, which is called a congressional delegation, with a couple of congressional delegations over to Europe. And we were making a whirlwind following at the time Secretary Baker, who was running around over in Europe when the so-called wall came down. In fact, I got a piece of the wall. I helped chisel it down. I had to be over there. And we told them that we would not, if you would unify Germany, we had East Germany and West Germany. The goal was to unify Germany. Then we will not move no further. We lied. In fact, like I say, it crossed over to different administrations. It was Bill Clinton that decided, hey, we're going to expand, NATO. We're going to put anti-ballistic missiles. I think it was in Poland and another country. We did that. And that's why I say we're the cause of this war, because Russia has been warning us, hey, if you keep going further and further, you're impacting our national security now, and Ukraine is going to be the red line, okay? There was already fighting going on. I don't want to get all that history in what we call the Donbass region portion of it, Russian-speaking people where Zelensky was bombing them, and Russia kept giving us, hey, stop that, okay? And so the reason I mentioned Victoria Nuland, she is the cause of a coup in 2014, along with the late Senator John McCain, who the president at the time, they wanted to stay neutral. Oh, we didn't like that. And so I remember Senator John McCain being over in the streets, rooting Victoria Nuland. Oh, who we're going to pick to be the next leader? We caused that. We don't take nobody else's national security. We just don't have no empathy for no other. And I'll end it by saying this. Back in May of 2023, the Eisenhower Media Network put out a New York Times paid ad, and you can look it up, by Googling, the U.S. should be a force for peace. And then in that piece, we put up a map. And if you had Russian missiles, fighter aircraft, men and women in Canada or Mexico, we would lose our mind. We would go crazy. Well, that's what we are doing to Russia, and that's what we were trying to do with Russia by putting NATO, letting them join NATO. Because guess what? Once you do that, you can put nuclear weapons in another NATO country. What does that do to Russia's national security? Think about that for a moment. And that's why we're here now. And then Trump comes in not knowing, hey, I want peace. And so that's how I feel about him. I want to get to peace, to save the Ukrainian people, to save their infrastructure, and oh, by the way, to get back some of that money so we can have the VA and others in need in our country.
Yeah.
I don't think Trump sees money in war from the standpoint of this is going to be good for business. I don't think Trump is a war hawk the way that others are. I think Trump sees it as, look at all this big, beautiful real estate. It's all destroyed. We need to build it up again. It's great opportunity. But that's him because he's a real estate guy. That's what he does. He doesn't look at dropping bombs as a means of being good for, the economy or the global economy for that matter. America first, as it is said. However, the one thing that I think we would both want to conclude this conversation tonight on is it's the follow through after the Oval Office meeting between Trump and Zelensky that to me is the most troubling. It's the people that are rabidly still supporting Zelensky. Yeah. And it's the people within our State Department, it's the people within the government. It was brought to my attention that Tulsi Gabbard revoked the security clearances of Anthony Blinken and a whole bunch of other neocons earlier this afternoon. But that's not going to stop them from circumventing the president of the United States. I get a very like JFK-esque type feeling with the way they're going about this right now, that there's almost like a shadow government operating behind Trump's back, trying to make sure that this war doesn't end, that they can, that there is a McNamara that's saying one thing to the president and doing something else completely different behind the scenes. And that's kind of what I'm getting here. I'm getting that feeling that despite what Trump does do for empire, there are parts of it that he doesn't adhere to, and that's not good enough. You have to be all the way in. It was easier just having a half-dead guy like Biden in the White House who couldn't do anything, and they just did what they wanted. And now that that's not the case, they're not able to operate in the shadows as effectively as they did before. And so I'm wondering if you guys think that there is some sort of a soft coup that is taking place right now against Trump. I kind of get the feeling there is, but I could be wrong. What do you guys think as we wind down the conversation?
Well, there's definitely pushback in the whatever you want to call the deep state, the institutional government, the imperial government of Washington. There is all kinds of pushback, and it's compounded by the fact that they personally, many of them, despise Trump. I mean, to the extent of losing their moral ground. They can't even support peace because he's supporting peace.
Right.
But there's but that's like people's opinion. And maybe their friendships. I've been working with Ukraine for 20 years. Let's say I don't want to abandon these guys. But the real thing is money. Money is what controls this, and money has been made. The empires don't enrich the people that live in the empire. They enrich the people that run the empire. And Trump's trying to end the empire. He doesn't use those terms, but that's what he's trying to do. And we are living through something that most people don't get a chance to live through very, very much in human history. And that is the end of an empire and the transition into something else. And there are people, many of them very wealthy and with the resources that we can't even imagine, that are being threatened. And when wealthy powerful people are threatened, I mean, it doesn't take much to knock people off. And so I think there'll be arrests, there'll be accidents. There's going to be all kinds of stuff. And we saw this. I hate to say, but for me, I was just 3 years old when Kennedy was shot. But I've always been interested in it, so I've read a lot of books, and I've always tried to inform myself, because what the government told us about that was not true. When we know that now, I mean, the government actually come out and said that it's not true. But the deep state at that point, the imperial global, I shouldn't say globalist, but the America as an empire, the people running that empire, the people running coups around the world, ran one in this country. And it was very, so much similar to the way we dealt with foreign leaders that we didn't like. They dealt with JFK exactly like that. And it starts with undercutting them politically. It's, as you're sensing and you're seeing this undercutting, this opposition that's stirring, people that are aligning and grouping against the president. That all happened to Kennedy from day one. And then eventually, when it didn't really work as well as they wanted, or not as fast as they wanted, they took him out. And I say they, I don't know precisely who they is, but I know the interests aligned against Kennedy were powerful for the day. The interests aligned against Trump are 10 times more powerful. I mean, the ways that we can destroy people with social media and with money and with the way we can kill them, we have 1,000 more ways to murder people today for less money than they did then. We don't need a guy. We don't need a guy with a long, high-speed rifle, a distance rifle. We don't need that, and we actually don't need patsies. We can make patsies if we want them, but a guy like Trump, he could wake up one morning and they say, "Well, Trump died in his sleep." We'll never.
Yeah, absolutely.
And this if the people opposed to him not because they're Americans or because he's doing something actually wrong, but because they cannot tolerate the loss of power and the loss of financial advantage that they have had for years, because he is ending the American empire. That's worthy of a coup for sure. So it's an exciting time to be alive. But I'll tell you,
that's how I feel.
If they take him out, and his people, he's surrounded his key staff and most of Congress is hardcore Zionists. That means imperialism, because Zionism is a form of imperialism, and it connects to America's favorite form of imperialism. So that has to go. All of that has to go. And if they take out the leaders that are kicking doors down and bull and China shop type of things, it will be up to us. But I think we can do it, because we are connected in so many ways with social media, with communications. It's not just the younger people that have super high expectations of what they should know about. When I was a kid, if it wasn't in a book, I figured I wouldn't. We didn't have these options.
I know.
But now it's like I can confirm everything that I see, everything that I hear, everything that I read. I can confirm it. I can research it. And if that's somehow taken away, it will be intolerable to the people, and not just Americans, to the world. So we're living in an exciting time. Trump has got a role to play here. And I support him in playing that role, but I don't depend on him to finish the job. That will be for us to do.
I love how you phrase that. I just simply say Trump facilitates the revolution.
There you go. That's good. That's it.
Dennis, final thoughts?
Well, I go by in my heart, what's right and what's wrong. As stated earlier, regardless of where I feel about President Trump, I support whether it's transactional on his part. He think he may get something out of it. I do support the ending of the Ukraine war. I think I saw in a chat, somebody said, well, do we let Russia, get away with what they did? Well, you got to look at the policies of things. Russia has been warning us. And I got to remind us, we've been in more wars, more coups than anybody on this planet. Okay.
People think this started when Russia invaded Ukraine, like people think that Gaza started on October 7th.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. So our job is to help educate them and understand, especially for those of us that have been in the military, deployed to some of these locations, knew what our government was doing, under so-called secrecy and so forth. Our job is to help educate and then, you make your own critical decisions. I feel I've done my part, because you don't know what you don't know. And then after I share with, as I tell folks, I can give you opinions, assumptions, then I can give you the facts. Okay. And I can give you the facts for how we got into Ukraine, Russia war. But at the same time, I agree with Trump on that. However, I disagree with him totally on what we're doing in Gaza and his so-called plans. And we must continue to fight against him regarding that. But then at the same time, we must support him in regards to bringing peace to Ukraine.
Couldn't thank you guys enough as always. And this is always an enlightening conversation. And I'll leave you guys with this thought.
Wait, can you answer Jimmy Zimzan, though, that question? It was like, if Gen Z is aware, what is there was somebody that put in the chat to you and Dennis and Karen, what should be their next step? Like, okay, so let's say we're now informed. Now what? And not that you two are like the experts on what everybody who's informed should be doing, but that was the question.
This is what I tell everybody to do, which I did not do in my life. But I do not advise that people go into the military, and I don't advise that people go into a civil service career. I think they should be very careful working in a state job. I think people need to think about their lives and think about what makes them most free in case things go south. And I think you have to also be able to criticize, which actually we like to criticize. I mean, people criticize everything. It's like hate speech is criticized, bullying online. It's really, we enjoy criticizing people and poking fun, I guess. We need to do that to the empire. If we can focus that natural human tendency to kind of say, oh, those guys over there, I don't like them. Let's point the finger at empire. Because you say you're informed, probably not enough yet, because like Dennis said, literally 50, 60 wars since Vietnam that we have been involved in, either starting or funding or actually doing ourselves. And this is all in time of peace. Not a single congressional declaration did we get, according to the Constitution, for any of those activities. That's what empire does. Okay, so inform yourself on empire. It's not enough to say, well, I see what Trump's doing, I don't like it. I see what we did in Ukraine the last 6 years, I don't like it. Understand that empires really don't care what you think, and you need to be very well armed to take an empire down from within. It's going to fall down on top of us and kill us. Don't manage this transition back to the normal multipolar world where we trade with everybody, and what Jefferson and Washington both said, you're friends with everyone, but entangling alliances with none. Maybe it was Adams. They all thought the same way. They said, let's take care of ourselves first. And Trump does not really remind me of any of those early founding fathers at all. But his America first is kind of that leaning of, let's take care of ourselves. Let's be friends. Let's not be enemies. Let's not make war. War is the most destructive thing. So this is what you have to do. And if you're working for the state, or if you're working for Raytheon, come on, you are not free. You can't criticize the war. That's your paycheck. So please don't invest yourself in what the empire is doing, and get ready to, make the world you want to see. I mean, this sounds so cliched, but you really do. If our empire or military, don't be a part of it. Do not be a part of it for any minute of your life.
Yeah. Let me just add to that real quickly to that question. What can you do? It may seem minute and small, but it will make a difference, because I've worked on the Hill as part of the Air Force Congressional Affairs. And I will tell you, they have young staffers on the Hill that count. Okay. You can put all the money. I've seen folks run for office with little money, and somebody had a big cash full of money and they lost. The people with the money lost. Why? They count votes. So if you call after you become so-called informed, make your own critical decision based on what you see in the media and what you see your congressperson say, and I don't think that is right. Where if you call that office and say, hey, look, I don't believe this is right, I don't think you should vote for that. As they get those numbers, they have counters in there. I don't care how much money, campaign money you see on television when they airing these advertisements and so forth. If they got people calling them and say, hey, we disagree with that, and we're expecting you to vote this particular way, they will do it. Okay. Voting counts. And I really mean that.
Thank you both very much. And thank you, as always, for your service. And remember, guys, if you need an opinion about foreign policy and whether or not we should go to war, always take it from somebody who has either served or is serving, because very often, if not every time, a person says that we need to go to war, it's because they're not actually going to serve in it.
Or they're psychopathic, like Brian Mast.
There's that too. Thank you, Karen. Thank you, Dennis. Always a pleasure.
Hi,
Keep up the
guys.
great work.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Thank you all.
I feel the need to address the thing in the chat a while back that said that I don't have books, that we don't have books, because everybody has libraries behind them. And then, but here's the thing, guys. I have a shit ton of books. I got books. I assure you I have books. But the problem is this is a studio, which is a garage, and this is not where I just have books. Like, so, you know, I could have fake books, but what would that do?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, it's always good to have, you know.
But and then of course I see people there. Well, Jen likes her listening books, and that's true too. I do like. Speaking of that, I do like listening to books.
Keep the audience entertained for a second, please.
Okay, so speaking of me enjoying audiobooks, let me remind everybody that on Thursday we're going to be speaking with Dr. Sarah Glass, whose book is called Kissing Girls on Shabbat. And I did do the audiobook, and it was great. She does her own narration, and she's got a lot of insight. I just find her extremely interesting. And oh my God. Oh my God.
I heard something about kissing girls on Shabbat. I knew a thing or two about that growing up in Brooklyn. We used to have these wonderful Friday night get-togethers with the friends and family. Jen, I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. We had a lot of good time. You might have heard of it, called Spin the Bottle. And that was the first time that I had the opportunity to actually kiss a girl. And it was great. It took a lot of frogs to kiss Jane, but I eventually got there. And I'm a very lucky man even to this day.
I had a first kiss from Spin the Bottle. My first kiss was a Spin the Bottle kiss.
Well, that's great to know. And I thought it would also be important to come on here and remind each and every one of you that I am now out rallying to draw people back into the Democratic Party again. So if you haven't been to one of my rallies, as you can see, we're drawing huge crowds.
But what are you doing with those people? How are you like leading those people?
You can't ask me to do everything, Jen. I mean, I'm out there, I'm identifying the problems. The eggs are too expensive. We have to protect Ukraine. Don't ask me why on that one. They've given me reasons, and I just have to accept them. But cost of living is too high. The environment is really bad. And Trump's a dictator. Well, what do you want me to say? He's not a good guy. And my good friend...
He's not the problem, Bernie. He's the symptom of the problem. He's just a fair representation of what this country is, quite honestly.
Well, would you like to come to one of my rallies? Would you be interested in showing up?
Until you stop shepherding people into the party, I don't see the purpose of what you're doing at all. Because all you're doing is creating momentum that will have nowhere to go. So I don't understand. Unless you're corralling people to a general strike, then I don't understand the point of what you're doing.
Well, what we are doing is we're trying to remind people that this country's in a bad way right now, and that's about it.
Yes, but then what? Yes, thank you for pointing out the problem. I appreciate that. That was very helpful 10 years ago.
I've never had good follow-through. If you ever saw me play basketball, I kind of stop right here at the top. I don't follow through all the way on my jump shot, just like I don't follow all the way through on my politics. I can identify the problem, but my solutions don't seem to pan out too well. And that's
no. So as soon as you stop shepherding people into a feckless, useless, corporatist, elitist party and start ushering people in the direction of labor and a general strike, then what you're doing is not helping the revolution in any way. And at this point, for me, if you're not part of the solution, you're just an impediment to the solution. Otherwise known as part of the problem.
I'm out there trying to solve problems.
No, you're out there shepherding little sheep into the Democratic Party.
Well, look, the Democratic Party has a lot of problems. They may have stolen my 2 presidential nominations. They may have become a party of endless war. They may be a party that's even worse on the environment. They may even be a party that's worse on healthcare. They may even be a party that is worse on economic bureaucracy, gone amok. And yet, they're still better, I think. Maybe, possibly. I don't know what I can do anymore, Jen. I just hope people enjoy themselves coming to my parties or whatever you want to call them. The little get-togethers are really important. And
Bernie, if I were you, seriously, and I'm not one of the people that ever harped on the fact that you've got the 3 houses. I think kudos for you. I think everything is everybody's personal.
Well, I have explained
my suggestion to you, Bernie, is to get rid of the place in DC and move to the lake house that Jane's family has. Move there.
Really
enjoy your life. I'm sure it's
appreciate it, Jen. If I remember correctly, you really like being up in the mountains and
I do, and that's why I think what you should do now at your age is to go to the house, the lake house. Go be at the lake, Bernie. Go enjoy
being at the lake
for your service.
But Jen, the country needs me. That's the way it is.
No, the Democrats need you to be their useful idiot.
I have to go out there and continue to create false hope for too many people. That's my job. That's what I have to do.
It's just so unfortunate.
Goodbye.
And it is unfortunate.
It's pitiful. It's pitiful.
Well, no, because what Bernie is effectively doing is he's creating, listen, people have rage, people have concerns, and that's totally valid and understandable, but there's no follow through. What is he going to do?
Rage.
Is he just going to tell people that you have to you have to go and support Gavin Newsom? Could you even imagine him doing that? How about Pete Buttigieg? How about that, Bernie? How about the guy who literally was a total fuck and a half for the Democratic establishment who screwed your run in let me tell you.
Oh, he'll be if Bernie is still participating, and I mean, again, age is exponential. But yes, he will absolutely be out shilling for Pete Buttigieg.
If Bernie did what he was supposed to do and fought back the way that he should have, if Bernie had won in the fashion he needed to in terms of recognition for the Iowa caucuses in 2020, he would have won the New Hampshire primary by a much more substantial margin and would have also won the Nevada primary in a very substantial margin. Would that have made the difference? I don't know, but I know enough to know that he never fought the way that he needed to. And as a result, we're now stuck where we are. Bernie can identify the problem, but he's not willing to identify the solution that is really necessary.
Because he's part of the system that is the problem.
It is.
And of all people, like, you're not going to get a solution. Yeah. You're not going to get a solution from the problem to fix the problem. Like, that's just silly.
Rashnu wants to know what you got there in that thing.
You know, I'm always on whatever my guy brings me. We don't have recreational here.
You got a guy?
I have a guy. We only, and he delivers. We don't have recreational in Florida. We only have medicinal, and I refuse to pay the state for the ability to smoke. So I do not have an assortment available to me, and I don't like the Delta 8 shit. So no offense to people that do, if that's your jam. But so I have a guy, and basically what I get is what I get. And it's generally some sort of hybrid, and it's from California, and it's whatever it is. I honestly, I'm a cheap date.
When you think about Bernie complaining and trying to state his case about why we are where we are, but then you see what happens when Congressman Al Green from Houston starts his ruckus regarding Medicaid being cut, which I think is a legitimate gripe. I think anybody would agree. Medicaid is maybe the most vital government program that we have. And with Elon Musk being the co-commander-in-chief, making decisions basically that Trump just goes along with without pushback, you get this type of a problem, but then you also get a problem from a party that just throws Al Green under the bus, as he discussed the other day on the Breakfast Club.
Hey, that going away. Don't you admire the fact that he is willing to do whatever he wants to do for his base? Well, that's what anybody who supported Democrats, that's all we ever want. Do something for the base. Keep your promises. Yes. He keeps his.
Yeah, well, we said, give us the House, the Senate, and the presidency, and we'll pass Voting Rights Act, John Lewis Voting Rights. We'll pass George Floyd Justice in Policing. Mm-hmm. We will raise the minimum wage. We will, for the labor folk, pass the PRO Act, Protect the Right to Organize Act. For the members of the LGBTQ plus community, we would pass the Equality Act. Well, we had the House, the Senate, and the presidency, and we didn't do it. That's your point. That's your point. We didn't do it. But here's to add to your point. when Republicans had the House, the Senate, and the presidency, and they didn't have enough votes to bring us to cloture. Cloture is where you get 60 votes, so you pass something with 51 votes. Mm-hmm. When they couldn't get to cloture with 60 votes, they said, fine. They made the following motion, not in these exact words, when there was a federal judgeship up. They said, we believe that we should pass this judgeship on with 51 votes. And the chair overruled that and said, no, you've got to have 60. And I remember the person making this motion, asking this, said, I appeal the ruling of the chair. Now, when you appeal the ruling of the chair, you only have to have 51 votes. Mm. So the 51 votes then allowed them to take up the issue of placing this person on the Supreme Court with 51 votes, as opposed to 60. We did a similar thing with John Lewis voting rights. Mr. Schumer did. And when we took our votes, we had 48 Democrats to vote with us.
Well, whoever is controlling this camera is a fucking idiot, but that's neither here nor there. Here's the problem that Al Green and a lot of these other guys don't get, is that when you get right down to it, with all the problems that are going on, no one gives a fuck about a Voting Rights Act. That doesn't change anything. You're still stuck in this world where if we just voted a little fucking harder, that's going to solve the fact that we do not have clean water, we do not have a living wage, we do not have universal health care, we have endless war, and the planet's on fire. But let's vote harder, and that's what's going to fix it. No, the fact of the matter is, this is just a distraction. Is voting harder in certain areas than others? You bet your ass it is. But that would require actually going after the government regulations that are put in place to stop areas that are not going to vote in favor of capital. Not about whether or not you expand voting rights. It's about whether or not, if you remember, Jen, during the Arizona primary, the first time with Bernie and Hillary, they deliberately closed polling stations in areas like Arizona State University where they knew that Bernie was going to do very well.
They closed polling stations in states that are in different demographic communities all the time. That's what they do.
What about what they did? You know, what people also forget about Bloody Tuesday or Sunday, Bloody Sunday, whatever you wanted to call it, when all of the Dems dropped out except for Elizabeth Warren, hi Snake, and got behind Joe Biden. What people forget is that even in that moment, Bernie won the California primary and was absolutely going to win the Texas primary. Now, if he was able to say that he won the Texas and California primary, that would have been too big to ignore no matter how many states Biden won on that day. But what did they do in Texas and a number of places where there were large college communities? They shut down the polling stations. And these are Democratic strongholds.
Like this, like what Lila's saying.
Easily.
That's
and that was one of the first things.
200,000 people off the rolls. Yeah, and you see that in places, in lots of Dem places. You see that is rampant in Atlanta.
So you have Al Green here. Well, I'm sure
Can we show my clip of Al Green? I have a better clip of Al Green.
Where is it?
I'm going to show you. Hold on. See.
Are you kidding? This is what you want me to... You're going to get our channel flagged, you know. You can't do this. Good to know that remember, we've got like 5 seconds that we can get away with that.
Every time. I do not care. Al Green, anything that has been on the screen in the past however many days about Al Green, I kid you not, all I'm hearing is let's stay together. Every time he could talk, I'm hearing, wah, 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 let's stay together. That's all I hear. Anyway, if you want to go back to your Al Green, that's fine. I just thought mine is better.
As I was saying.
Two did not. Manchin and Sinema did not. If they had, then Vice President Harris would have come over and been the 50. So
you're going to run into the same problem with John Fetterman. You're going to run into the same problem with whoever is the latest person that has to make sure that if a bill that is populist and progressive in nature will not pass. And the problem, of course, on the Democratic Party side is that they're all a bunch of cuck pussies. They just are. I hate having to say it that way. But this is the reality of what we're dealing with. You can complain and complain about decorum and why are they doing this and why are they doing that. Al, your own party threw you under the bus. And keep in mind, Al Green has no love for Israel or its lobby and takes no money from AIPAC. However, the 10 Democrats, including Jared Mouskowitz, that decided to vote to censure Mr. Green, they are all heavily funded by AIPAC and the Israel lobby.
People are having questions about cuck pussies. And what is that? They would like a better explanation.
Basically, people who get on their hands and knees and take it. That's basically what it means.
Oh, God.
They will not fight, and they will ask you for a second helping of, can I take it where the sun don't shine? That's basically what it means. They're not going to fight. And I love Bernie, but if you're going to do a rally, what is the message? People are hurting.
What's the action?
Know people are hurting.
Well, the problem is, okay, when Bernie was running the first time and even the second time, essentially he'd have a rally as a call to action. It's get out and vote. It's vote for me. It's what. What's the call to action now, Bernie?
Yeah.
What's the call to action? He doesn't have one, and that's the problem. So what's happening?
What are you going to do, Bernie? Are you going to tell
know.
people?
But this guy doesn't support single payer, from what I understand. So he was making some little token gesture about, I'm going to speak out about this Medicaid thing. Okay, great. That's very nice. That's very helpful. Thank you for getting, your 5 seconds of stardom, and Democrats doing a whole kente cloth, singing, praise thy Lord or whatever they were singing. But this guy doesn't support everybody having health care. So who gives a shit what his token theatrical thing was about Medicaid? That's what I think. Sorry.
He voted against an amendment to the Affordable Care Act, which prevented insurance programs created by the act from covering abortions, which I think means that he supports a woman's right to choose. I think that's what that means.
I don't see what you're reading, but in any event, the point is what he did is very political theater.
Of course.
Just like you have the bad guys we had with Mangione and Cinema, this is him playing whatever part he's playing in the political theater. It's not going to matter. It doesn't mean anything.
The one thing that I do love, which I find hysterical, is that if you look on his Wikipedia under personal life, it says Green is a Baptist Christian. He is also divorced. I guess religion only goes so far before you have to make a decision that doesn't go in, that flies in the face of all that. Look, it's all hypocrisy. It's all theater. And it's why most people don't care. And I don't blame them for not caring. So when you see Bernie going out there and advocating for people to just continue to do what we've always done, which is the definition of insanity, because nothing has changed, what do you expect is going to happen? You think this time around they're all of a sudden going to change tune and that they're just going to give in? That the Democrats have learned their lesson?
Oh, no. Oh, no. But the thing is, there's no lesson for them to learn. They're part of, I guess, yeah. It's a uniparty. It doesn't matter. There's no lesson to learn. It's not like the Democrats are really wanting to know, which is why, and
there is a lesson to be learned.
I'm glad Lila's there because it was really great on Punch Up last night where they were talking. They showed Gavin Newsom's little sit down with Charlie Kirk, and with essentially asking him, what should we do? Which is the most that in and of itself is just such a cuck move, which is ridiculous. You're asking Charlie Kirk, who's half your age, and you're asking him what you should do. That's just pathetic right there. But these people in no shape or form are going to get us out of this situation.
Micah Tanker, excellent reference. And for those of you who don't know it, I'm not going to explain it. Just remember, I voted for Kodos. That's all you need to know. Remember to go to Patreon.
Did you run our people?
Yes, you always ask me as if I don't do it. Patreon.com/ and you always interrupt. Patreon.com/generational change for as little as $5 a month. You can become a supporter of our small but mighty channel. We've had some great support in the chat tonight. S. Jahara, thank you so much for being a YouTube member for 1 month. Free Mahmoud Khalil, Solidarity Free Palestine. We agree 1,000%. Teresa, thank you so much for the $5 super
Thank
sticker.
you.
Great to see you. And Perry Stein, I support Al Green. Let's stay together. Well,
Thank you. Let me tell you, that's all I think about in my head. I'm sorry. That's because wouldn't we all rather just watch that Al Green? Come on.
ask and thou shalt receive, our final story of the night.
Free Luigi.
When you think about all the things that are going on right now, and Mahmoud Khalil adds to it, the circumvention of Trump on Ukraine adds to it, the complete insanity of the Israel lobby adds to it. And all the while we're asking ourselves, well, what does the future actually hold? The future is not in traditional electoral politics. Now, elections do matter, 1,000%. Don't ever let people tell you that elections don't matter, because that's ridiculous. However,
in what way? How do they matter? Explain to me where it helps. Tell me.
We actually do need to have a functioning government, but unfortunately,
and I'm asking you though, in what way does voting in what way does it exhibit the will of the populace?
Well, at the local level, it does, even at the county, and sometimes even the state.
Someone's got to handle the garbage pickup. I get it. Okay. Like those things are real, right?
But in terms of
sustainable communities that have nothing to do with partisan bullshit is the solution, people.
But in terms of the federal government is broken, and it's been broken for a long time. And to pretend now that it's even worth attempting to continue this fucking charade is insane. Like, it's not worth it.
No.
And when you get people, as we pointed out last week, guys, remember, we know Jasmine Crockett personally. We've had her on this show multiple times. She ignores us now.
3 times.
She ignores us now, doesn't acknowledge that we're alive.
She's now in. So
I have your phone number, Jasmine. I've texted you.
I do too, but that's neither here nor there. I don't.
So don't. But the idea that they don't know, they do fucking know.
A lot of people's phone numbers that don't respond, though.
But when you're doing these Mario, Luigi type dances of, I'm a fighter now, and I'm
that was so brutal.
What are you a fighter for? You're a fighter for your career. I know.
No, they're a fighter for a useless corporate party that is serving itself. That's what they're fighting. They're fighting for their own gigs, I guess.
Yeah. That doesn't solve anything. But you know what does matter? Stories like this matter. Luigi Mangione's letter to 66-year-old woman fighting insurance company. The woman, Karen, we'll forgive her for her name. In a letter,
we had a good Karen on tonight.
We did. I didn't even acknowledge that she was a good Karen. Claimed that her daughter had developed complete catatonia in January of 2024 and spent 60 days in the hospital in a single year. Colin, if you will. The woman, Karen, in a letter to Mangione, claimed her daughter had a rare, life-threatening disease that required constant care and medical treatment, and United Healthcare refused to pay for her recommended treatment. Ms. Karen claimed that she had to fight for months before she could give her daughter the medication she needed. She also vowed to keep up the fight in Mangione's name. Colin, don't fall asleep on me. Mangione thanked the woman for sharing her story with him. In response, he wrote, "Your letter is the first to make me tear up. I am so sorry for what you and your daughter so senselessly had to endure." The UPenn grad also asked Miss Karen, 66, to send a photo of herself and her daughter, as well as a clear picture of Jesus, because the one in the letter
don't mess with the Jesus
was a blurry black and white image. He promised to put it up on his prison cell wall next to her letter. He wrote, "If you were able to send a photo of you and your daughter or the mosaic, it would mean a great deal to me. I will put it up on my prison cell wall next to your letter. I would send a picture of Saint Luigi." That's what I would send. He concluded the letter, "Your daughter is blessed to have a mother who loves her so much and fights for her so relentlessly." Since his arrest in December, Mangione has received thousands of letters from his supporters and fans Don't even call them fans, because that's not what they are. It's a fight. It's
Yeah, well, they're doing that. They're doing that to make him seem like people that would write to serial killers or people that would like write to Manson, right? Like they're doing that to make like that's very specific language. Anyway.
Since his arrest, Mangione added that while he couldn't respond to all the letters, he reads them all, and he also thanked everyone for taking the time to write. It has been brought to our attention, true or not, I'm still looking for verification, but as many of you know, Elon's Tesla dealership in Paris, France, was firebombed over the weekend. And apparently,
that's a shame.
Very
That's a shame.
Very Seinfeld-esque. You can't let it go. You can't let it go. You don't own it, Jerry. We own it. But apparently one of the people that was involved said that Mangione was an inspiration. That's one of the reasons he did it.
All gone. Burnt down.
And imagine if people fought in this country the way they do over in France.
We're getting to it. We're getting to it.
We're getting
We
close.
need our yellow vest. Look, every single one of these decisions, moves that Trump is making, that is firing people, disenfranchise people, cutting people off from their support, their services, all of those things are just adding more and more people to the potential Luigi pile. And as that pile gets bigger and bigger and starts to coalesce, that's where we're going to start to see things happening. And that's why Trump facilitates it, because he's doing it in mass. In like one full day, he pissed off how many veterans? I mean, it's like, and that's the thing that's different is he's not just pissing off the woke liberals. We don't give a shit about them being angry. They're not going to do anything. They don't even have electoral power anymore. The people that he needs to be concerned about are his people that he's pissing off, because those are the people that are not going to just take it. So that's where this is going to me.
And he's moving at breakneck speed, which is what makes people so uncomfortable. But as you've so often said, at some point you have to rip off the Band-Aid. There is no other way. We are merely stalling. People think that you can incrementally change, but that's people who are comfortable that say they want incremental change. They want change that they're comfortable with, not change that they're not comfortable with. But sometimes
we have to address this. Oh, wait, no, not that. We have to address this. Carl, I understand that. It is very imperative that you understand that the kind of martial law that we're talking about is martial. And I just want to be clear on that. Anyway, I digress.
Thanks, attorney. Does Trump want to declare martial law? Who knows? But I just don't think it'll hold. I don't think this country would. There's too many people now that we know that are in the libertarian movement, that are in the MAGA movement. They're not on board with this shit.
And they were supporters and are supporters. And that's the people he's concerned about. Again, like he doesn't care about the liberals.
He cares about people that will actually take up arms.
Yeah. That's what I mean. Nobody's scared of the Dems, nobody's scared of those people.
Not at all. That's why when they have their heart attacks, their conniption fits, their therapy sessions over January 6th, you haven't seen anything yet.
Exactly, Denise. See, and that is when it happens, because we have way too many firearms in this country to expect this to go any other way than much more violently.
Appreciate you.
Thanks, Lila. But yeah, I mean, I've been saying this is going to get infinitely more violent. Not from me personally. I am not armed. But that is, I mean, can we rename it Trumpian law?
Well, we always said
I think he should. The one thing that, it's funny, he changed it to Gulf of America. I was suggesting he should change New Mexico to just New America. I mean, that at least is in this country technically, whereas the Gulf kind of, existed before. But I mean, we could start changing names of all sorts of cool things.
Perry, thank you for the $5. Historically, when right-wing leaders like Trump lose their base, they scapegoat black people, and it's not going to work now. Nope. It's not going to work.
No.
Too many people it's not even a question of, are things worse now than they've ever been before? I equate it in very simple terms. Colin, if you can pull up the Rick Scott clip one more time, I'm going to show you what I mean.
Gross. He's Voldemort.
I'm going to show you two things that make sense.
I could have nightmares from this man.
There are reasons why we have come too far now. This is one.
Senator Rick Scott here. I hear from Americans.
We don't care what you hear. We care what we see. This is so in your face that there is no way to avoid it. And it has always made me sick when I see them splice the American flag and the Israel flag.
Yeah.
I wish more people would splice the American flag and the Palestinian flag.
This is the kind of thing, though, that he will soon realize, as Trump is going to realize, that I don't think plays well with at least half their base. Like, yeah, they'll have a ton of people. They'll have their Zionists, their, those folks that support Israel and whatever. You even have people like Brian Mast that they're pro-Israel, whatever. But a lot of their people, the libertarian people, the just normal red, they are not with, and even the people that are very nationalistic, which are not my people, those people's motives are not my motives, but they sure as hell don't want their senator having a foreign flag on the wall of his office for whatever their racist, bigoted reasons are. So this is not going to play well to the. I think that these kinds of things are going to really come back to bite all of these people with their own supporters.
Well, you can say that again, Del Sol Verde. I really think people need to understand.
Del Sol Verde.
This is one of many that we will see. But if you think that with Rick Scott is bad, this probably, as much as any reason, is why, if you think you've seen the last of the Luigi Mangione brigade, it's only getting started. I've got more money than I can spend. How can I shelter it from the socialists? This is not a joke. This is not The Onion. This is an actual article in the UK Telegraph.
I actually feel so bad for The Onion. That's like the worst. That's going to be the worst collateral damage of all of this ridiculousness is The Onion. Anyway.
Money Makeover. Our reader is concerned about passing his hard-earned wealth. Can you scroll down ever so slightly, Colin?
Who is that?
Scroll up for a second. John Ivins describes himself as a shop floor lad made good. This guy. If you had met John Ivins in the 1960s, long before Jen and I were even a thought in anybody's mind, he would have extolled to you the virtues of communism. Then in his early 20s, he was swept away by the arguments of the far left. Today, some 60 years later, the 83-year-old is worried about shielding his assets from inheritance tax. And of course, as a Brit, as you get a bit wealthier, you start to change your views. And I've realized that socialists will come back for more money every
The problem
time.
with your British accent is it's like it's too feminine. Like it not that there's anything wrong with a feminine accent, but you're doing it like.
Forgive me, but I associate the British accent with people like David Hyde Pierce. That's
okay. Well, I associate the British accent with people like Idris Elba. So, we can all have our different ideas. So, but my point is yeah. I'm just saying.
Along with his wife, Josie, 84, the couple from Burton-on-Trent have built themselves an impressive retirement. They own 3 mortgage-free rental properties that provide an annual income of £25,000. They have saved around £100,000 into their cash ISAs. I guess that's what you have in the UK, and regularly maximize their annual £20,000 allowance. They each hold the maximum £50,000 in premium bonds, and their pensions provide a combined annual. Oh, they have pensions. Oh, okay. So socialism for thee, but not for ye. Understood. £70,000. Mr. Ivins readily admits, I've got more money than I could ever spend. But life was not always that way for Mr. Ivins. He describes himself as a shop floor lad made good. Born as bombs rained down on Burton during the Second World War, Mr. Ivins started his career as a building trade apprentice. I was a painter and a decorator. But I had a lucky break to get in at Drakeloo Power Station. Because
But who is this guy? Like, what is that? Like, is this just some regular run of the mill? Is this one of the UK oligarchs? Is that your point?
well, he's not even an oligarch. He's just a successful old man who thinks that the socialists are coming to steal his money.
Hmm.
That's what he believes.
No, but we should.
Well, with that fucking attitude.
Well, I'm just, to me, I'm in a place where the whole concept of this ridiculous generational wealth, these levels of wealth that is just so ridiculous that people are inheriting for doing absolutely nothing that you could pass down. It's laughable. It's laughable. And it's all stuff that in the matter of however long will be meaningless and worthless and at the bottom of the ocean.
However, decades later, it was revealed laborers were exposed to asbestos while working in the power station. And Mr. Ivins says a number of his friends have since died. Well, he is pretty old, but nevertheless. In recent years, thoughts have therefore turned to how Mr. Ivins and his wife can best pass down their assets to their son and their 2 grandchildren. They set up a trust last year and also make use of the gifts out of a surplus income rules, which means they can send their grandchildren £200 each month without them being liable for an inheritance tax. Okay. And yet they have more money than they need. Currently, the question of care looms. Mr. Ivins is hopeful they would not have to sell any of their properties to fund any potential future care costs and could rely on their savings, but concedes their savings are risk averse. Here's the bottom line. As somebody in commercial real estate, this is a guy who clearly has commercial real estate related assets, whether it's multifamily property, who knows what, but he's clearly making a decent income off of it. And then there's the exceptional value in what those buildings and properties actually are worth. And why doesn't he want the inheritance tax? Because he wants to bequeath those properties to his family for nothing. He doesn't think that they should have to work for it. He thinks that they can be welfare queens because he has ways and means while others don't. So I'm sure he chastises people in places outside of areas like downtown Abbey that actually do have to struggle to survive, as our resident Irishman here, Travers, can attest to. I'm sure that it's not as easy for most others. And so as a result, the point being is that if you're going to tax people for things that they didn't earn instead of just giving it to them, well, that's the same thing. And that's why the inheritance tax, which was basically started under George W. Bush as a means to remove. Henry, what do you got? I believe 100% tax on every penny over $2.
Okay, the second part, while ideal, is funny. The total wealth confiscation enforced on the food stamps, while we could dream.
Anyone
But I agree with and we can negotiate what that top dollar is, and that's a discussion. But I absolutely agree. Like this is just.
No, you're all going about it the wrong way. You just need to restore the top marginal tax rate. If you restored the top marginal tax rate to pre-Reagan era, you would actually have enough of a balance within the system where people would have to not literally live hand to mouth in a way that has not been seen since the Gilded Age. But we all know what happened then. And we're in a different time now. We're in a different technologically advanced age. But people cannot rub 2 cents together, and that is a huge problem. Eggs is just one part of it. And when you get people that complain about the most simplistic of problems, and they don't address the root cause of the problem, which is capitalism has run its course. It has failed because it was never properly reformed. As I've always said, if it was not properly balanced with socialism, it could never survive. Not only has it not been balanced with socialism, it's been like this for decades. And because we are such an easily manipulated culture because of shit like this, think about how many hours are wasted on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, X, and the like every day when you could be doing something much more productive. And I'm not saying that our podcast is solving problems. I would say Status Quo is helping. But for the most part.
Well, no, I think we're helping. We're contributing to people's access to information and making sure people know things. I've had many people be appreciative that they learned something or they found something out, and it also, in the way we're helping, is when we platform other people like authors, journalists, other people, that spreads their message. So no, I think it is. It's part of building the awareness and the coalition. I think we're definitely helping.
Make sure to smash that like button. Make sure you are subscribed.
Hakeem Jeffries isn't helping. Looking in the chat, he's not doing anything to help.
Hakeem Jeffries doesn't want his position to be in jeopardy. That's all he cares about. He's looking over his shoulder at somebody like Jasmine Crockett thinking, I got to deal with this. You know what? That's what he's thinking. Jasmine Crockett wants his job. And you know what? She might be able to make a power play for it. And unlike Alex.
Hakeem Jeffries, why would you think she wants to be minority leader?
I think she wants power.
Well, I mean, I thought you were thinking she wants to be,
she wants to be the chair of the Congressional Black Caucus. I have no doubt.
She could probably figure a way to do that.
Do I think Jasmine wants to eventually be the House minority, or dare I say majority leader? Absolutely. 100%.
You know, and look, it's to be the leader of something that's dying and going away. I don't know that that's necessarily the flex that people might think it is.
That's a very good point. What do we have on Thursday, Jen?
Thank you, Chris. I had told them when you went away, but just again, guys, we will be having Dr. Sarah Glass on Thursday. Her book is Kissing Girls on Shabbat. It is not particularly a political. It's a memoir, but it's about her life growing up indoctrinated in an extremely Hasidic community in New York. It's just very interesting. And there's a lot of cult-like behavior and aspects that I think are very relevant to some of the more tribal stuff we see politically. And I actually think there was a very strong correlation between this sort of group think mentality and what that does. And and she also is actually a trauma therapist. So she's just somebody who all right, I'm kind of sweet on her and I really liked her book. So I wanted to meet her, and that's the truth. But the thing is, it is a really good book.
We will be speaking with Matt Taibbi next Thursday. We are still working on our guest for St. Patrick's Day. Travers, if you have any suggestions, we certainly are open to them. Del Sol Verde, here's what I will say. Jeffries is not a covert MAGA operative. He is doing exactly what the Democratic establishment wants him to do.
Because the Democrats are the covert, and it's not MAGA. They're just corporatists. They work for the same donors.
And they're
not even covert.
And they're running the same playbook that they've always run, which is we are counting on the Republicans being so shitty that we don't have to do anything, and the voters will just come back to the Democrats as a result. I got news for you. I don't think it's going to work. I really don't. So that's the way it goes.
Oh, I love Claire Daly.
Claire Daly, we would have on in a minute.
Oh, I love her. I do. I would totally love to talk to her. It's not often that we reach out to people that are across the pond because it's difficult with the time. And we generally then have to do an afternoon show. And so we don't love it. And occasionally for certain people, like it's worth it. Like there's somebody I know, right? Sable, she's the shit. And there is somebody that I just suggested to Peter that we reach out to, and I believe he's in Kuwait, so we will have to figure out how to accommodate. But yeah, occasionally we will. But if somebody connected me with Claire Daly, I would be very happy to do an afternoon show for her.
Smash that like button, share, subscribe, do all those things we ask you to do. We love you all. We'll see you Thursday.